Today I'm going to tell you a story about the life social anxiety made me live. It was about 2 years ago in my sophomore year of college, which was about a year into my recovery process. At the time, I was not involved in many extracurricular activities or clubs, so I really wanted to get involved in one. But the problem was that the only way to meaningfully be exposed to all these different kinds of clubs before they would fill up was through a club fair, which was basically a huge event on the front lawn where hundreds of kids would go out, talk to one another, be engaged with the co-presidents and the presidents of the club, and see if you're fit or, fit enough to get into these clubs. But at the time, I was going through so much anxiety that I could barely even get out of bed in the morning to get breakfast and dinner and go out with my friends on a Friday night. So going to this club fair, even if I went with a friend, would have been too much for me to handle. Too overwhelming, too much overexposure, and too much fear of rejection. So I didn't end up going to the club fair. And this was a huge disappointment for me at the time because I wanted to be involved in a club. Until 2 days later, I got an email from an organization on campus known as Chabad, Jewish organization for students that helps people get involved on campus. They sent me an email saying to me that they would be happy to have me for this classroom-like discussion known as Sinai Scholars, which was 2 hours a week, once a week. So it was already a very low commitment activity that could actually pay me for a $500 stipend for my college. So I was thinking at the time, well, this would fulfill my extracurricular activities, my clubs, and it would let me get engaged to more students on my campus at the time. So I was thinking to myself, this is a great idea. I could totally get involved in this. So I responded to the email, yes, I would love to get involved in this program. A couple days passed by, and I still didn't get an email back from the organization. So I was going back into negative thinking mode, and I was thinking, oh God, I'm not going to be able to do anything. I'm going to be all alone. I'm not going to be able to do anything, etc. But then I do get an email back about a day or so later, and they say to me, sure, this is great. We'd love to have you in the program, but you have to go through a 15-minute coffee chat or interview so we can get to know you and to see if you're a good fit for the club. And this is when I started to get a little bit antsy about the entire idea of going through this program. Because as I'm sure everybody on this channel knows, going through an interview for social anxiety is very, very difficult. There's a lot of exposure. You're one-on-one with somebody else, which means that you literally have to keep talking in order to make the conversation going. And there's almost a responsibility for you that you have to carry throughout the entire 15 minutes, that you have to do well in order for you to accomplish a certain goal. So it was very difficult for me before this interview. So what I was doing before the interview would even start, this was about a week in advance, I would open up my phone and I would script out conversations that I think would happen during this interview. I would write, hey, how's it going? It's good, how are you? I'm good. I would keep doing that for hours and hours and hours, thinking about all the different kinds of possibilities inside of my own head about how to respond to other people to make myself look like I could come off as this kind of perfect individual who didn't make any social mistakes at all. It was all about not making any mistakes to prevent the worst case scenario from happening, which was rejection or failure or something like that. So about a week before this interview, I was consistently thinking about doing this. And ultimately, I just kept doing that and kept thinking about it for 6 more days until the interview actually came about. And the day of, regardless of how much preparation I was doing, I was feeling so much stress. I was so worried about not getting into this club that for the entire day, all I was thinking about in my head was scripting out these conversations and making myself look good for the interview that was coming up. When I was getting out of bed in the morning, I even remember how difficult it was to just go to the cafeteria to get food in the morning and go to class. How difficult it was to just live my life and get on with my day. 15-minute interview, just 15 minutes, was taking up so much thought in my mind that I couldn't really do anything for the entire day going up to that point. But nonetheless, I get out of my bed and I go into the cafeteria to get my breakfast. And then, maybe about 15 or 30 minutes later, I go to class. And I remember sitting in this class, because it was right before my interview, just counting down the minutes before I would have to leave that classroom, before I would have to go into the dining room and conduct this interview. And so I remember when the class ended, I was just sitting in this chair, waiting for everyone else to leave. And I was just there all alone, really desperately contemplating whether I should go into this interview or not. And so eventually, I do get up, and I finally go on to the interview, where just the walk over there, I was just getting flooded with so much negative thinking. You know, you're not going to be able to do this unless you're not going to be able to get through the interview unless you do this, or that, or the other thing. And it was just so much negative emotionality and thinking. But finally, I do go through the doors of the dining room, and at a table near like the cafeteria area of the dining room, I see this really nice lady who says, "Hey, it's nice to meet you. How are things going?" And the interview is going pretty well at the time. But unfortunately, I wasn't relying on a script, so that, of course, was freaking me out a lot. By the time the interview ended, things went pretty okay. And I ended up getting into the program at school. Regardless of how anxious I was during the interview, regardless of all the negative thinking that I was having at the time, I still got into the program. And that's a good silver lining that I wanted to talk about in this video. Because one of the problems with social anxiety is that it takes up so much space in our minds that we can't dedicate our lives to anything else pretty much. We're thinking so much about what other people think about us that we never really sit down and realize all of the things in our life that we're actually doing right. And just the life that we're living. This was a 15-minute coffee chat interview that I was thinking about for weeks in advance, or about a week in advance. It took up so much time, these 15 minutes in my life, that I was literally scripting out conversations about what I needed to say and what I needed to do. This video in and of itself is probably half of the interview, and since one person is doing half of the talking, that's like pretty much the entire interview. And I was thinking about it so much that I probably lost, hours, days of my life just thinking about what other people are thinking about me. And this just goes to show the life that social anxiety makes people live. It just drives people insane to the point where they're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking about them, that ultimately they miss out on pretty much anything else they want to do in life. But like I said, the silver lining for this video is that I did get into the program, and I want you, the viewer, to realize that you too, are deserving and worthy of exciting and happy things in this life, regardless of what your anxiety is telling you. Okay? So this is going to be a nice short video. I just wanted to put that out there because this is my first story on this channel, and I think it went pretty well. I know I stumbled a little bit, but I think it went pretty well. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this new story format, and yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions, and I'll see you guys next time, I guess. Bye, everyone.